Hello and how are you doing? Welcome to Pefa Syokimau Youth Online, and this is Youth Split, a show that tackles matters concerning the youth, be it business, art, career, and life in general. And our hope is that you get educated, inspired, or entertained through this content that we make for you. Today, we are still on our topic, youth and politics, and I have a guest with me, George Kimani. You're welcome you're welcome in our Youth Split show. My name is Shell Njogu. So, just before we start, tell us who Mr. George is.
Thank you so much, Shelmith and the group, for giving me this opportunity. Before I tell you who is Kimani, I would want to take this opportunity to give God all the glory for giving me this opportunity to come here and share my views on youth and politics together with you people. I'm also grateful to our Bishop, Reverend Paul Munyiri, for enabling this to happen. I am also grateful to the leadership of the youth, led by our sister Shelmith, for according me the opportunity. My name is George Kimani, as you have heard. I'm a born-again Christian. I am a father. I am also a husband. And in terms of career, I'm an accountant and I'm a lecturer. Currently, I'm lecturing in a college known as Destiny Technical School. We are situated in the CBD in a house known as the Bazaar, 11th floor. We teach accounting courses. That is what I do for my career. In terms of the ministry, right now I'm serving in our church, in our Pefa Dawn home as a deacon, and that's where we are serving the Lord, and we are grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome again. Our today's topic is we are discussing corruption, and so we seek to understand what is corruption.
Thank you so much for your question about what is corruption. Corruption, let me begin by saying, is not a new term. It's a term that we are all familiar with. It's a term that we hear about being mentioned each and every day in almost every corner. We hear the word corruption. We hear so-and-so is corrupt. We hear this is corruption. Now, it is therefore very important, as Shelmith has asked us, that we get to know what we mean by corruption. Now, if you try to look at corruption, it comes from a Latin word that is called corruptors. And this word corruptors simply refers to the abuse of someone's position for selfish gain. So you have been given a position, you have been given some privileges, you have been given some powers, and now you abuse, you misuse them with the objective of obtaining something that is not rightfully yours, to just benefit you, and to a greater extent at the expense of the others. So that's basically what we mean by corruption, misuse of a position.
Yeah, and various ways that people get involved in corruption.
Thank you. There are many ways in which people get into corruption. First of all, we could say there is what we call the petty corruption. There is also what we could say it's called grand corruption. And there is also what we would call the systematic corruption. Now, starting with the petty corruption, these are the small things that people get involved in, like the use of bribes. You give a bribe so that you can obtain a service. The issue of extorting money, the issue of nepotism, the issue of favoritism, the issue of obtaining tenders that you are not supposed to obtain. That is regarded as petty corruption. There are things that touch on our day-to-day life. Then when we talk about grad corruption, we are talking of the big schemes that you would find institutions in institutions such as governments, and this is where we have networks. They even convert to like business in quote. Very notable examples is drug trafficking. That is also a case of one of the cases of grad corruption. We have issues of human trafficking. Is a case of grad corruption. We also have the cases of money laundering. That is also a case of grad corruption. And as I've said, those ones you'd find them in great institutions. They appear like a business, although it's not a legal business. When you talk about systematic corruption, it's a situation where the systems that have been laid down to be followed and to deliver a particular outcome, they have been influenced in such a way that some people are able to benefit in an unjustified manner. And systematic corruption, it takes advantage of the weaknesses that any system would have. So it is perpetuated by some guys who take time and they study a system, they understand where the loopholes are, and then they capitalize on that, and they get some gains that are not justified.
Right. Now, focusing on the petty kind of corruption, even the big ones, how does corruption, I think, in general, affect a developing country like ours?
Corruption has, to summarize or to sum up, even before I expound, it has very, very negative adverse effect on any developing country. And even before we come to the country, one, God condemns corruption. God does not like corruption. If you look at the Bible, there is a lot of evidence that says that is against corruption. And therefore, it interferes with your relationship with God. But coming down to your question, there are many, many ways. One, corruption distorts incentives and market forces. Incentive, it is what you get in the market for doing a particular job, like maybe the wages, the salaries, the gifts that you can get. So you find when there is corruption, those people who deserved a particular incentive, they don't get it. And those who did not deserve, they are the ones who end up getting. So the end result is that there will be a distortion in the economy. There will be a distortion in the economy. The other thing is that you find there is issues of inefficient tax on businesses, because the people who get involved in corruption, they also engage in tax avoidance or tax evasion, whichever is one of them is illegal, and they now make even the cost of products to be so high. That is another disadvantage of corruption on a developing country. The third impact, which is very, very bad, is that the prices of goods get inflated and the quality goes down. How does prices become inflated? It is because the producer, in the process of production, he had to go through many obstacles bribing his way. So the cost of production goes very high. And this money that is given for corruption, it does not have a commensurate value addition. So at the end of the production, we get a product whose cost is very high, but the value is very low. So the quality is very, very poor. And this actually ends up adding the poverty of the masses, because these masses are already poor in a developing country. You charge them a very high price, and you end up now giving them a low quality product. The other thing is, number 4, you'll find there is inefficient allocation of resources. Where we have needs, resources are not being taken there. Where we should not have needs, or rather where resources should not be taken there, you find the resources going there. And this is very dangerous in any country, because it creates what we call the class levels. It creates the disparities, and it creates like the rich and the poor, the well-to-do and the not well-to-do, and all this is courtesy of corruption. So you find in some areas there is a lot of resources, in some other areas there are no resources. And number 5, closely related to that, you find that corruption can bring conflict in a society, because it is only, for me, I take it as a human reaction, that if your neighbor is doing so well, there is a tendency of feeling bad for them. And now that bitterness, it is aggravated by the knowledge that how good they are doing is not something they deserved, but is something they got in an unjustified way, and more so it was denied from you. So those people who think it was denied from them, they can generate the inward bitterness, and in the long run it manifests into conflict, societal conflicts. And these societal conflicts, they come and finally disrupt the development of the nation. Number 5 or number 6 is that when we have corruption, it interferes with innovation. It hampers those people who could innovate. Innovation is about generation of new ideas. It is about getting new information and coming up with the new products which can improve our livelihood. And what should happen when you discover something new? When you come up with a new invention, it should be patented and you should be able to benefit economically from your new discovery. But what happens in a corrupt society? You find there are some guys who come along the way of trying to register that product, or along the way of trying to develop that product. They corrupt the way and they take up that product, and you find that now the person who had invented does not benefit. And we have many notable cases. Maybe I would quote like in music, you have composed a song, and in the process someone takes over the song, and you find it all over being distributed. Or you have authored a book and someone takes it over, or you come up with many innovations that we have. So when there is corruption, there is hampered innovation. And if we hamper innovation, then our objective of developing the nation can never be achieved, because you cannot be able to develop without innovation. Number 7 is what we call a shadow economy. It creates emergence of a shadow economy. When corruption comes into the system, you find some guys who are corrupt. They will corrupt the entire system, all the way even to the tax authorities, and they would want to avoid taxes. So they don't want to register their businesses, they don't want to pay taxes. So the government loses out on the tax which it could have gotten, and diverted that tax to undertaking development projects such as health projects, education project, road infrastructures, and so on. So businesses are being run, a lot of money is circulating, but the government is not getting the tax, because there is a shadow economy. And to put salt to the wood, you realize that these guys who are engaged in corruption and they are not paying taxes, they also get to the point of oppressing the people who work for them. They pay them very poor salaries, they subject them to very poor working conditions, and these are the same people that we expect that they will be involved in the development of the nation. So when these people do not have enough resources, they are not able to meet their basic needs, the working conditions are poor, they are exposed to health issues, then even there cannot be any saving. So corruption creates that shadow economy, which is a very, very bad thing in any developing country. And lastly, I would want to say corruption also hampers what we call foreign investment. Now, a foreigner, or first of all, for any nation to develop, we need foreigners. And foreigners, they bring new ideas to us. If you look at any locality, even in your village and where you live, people who come from outside are the ones who bring new ideas. They are the ones who bring new development. All people who are in that locality, they went out, they went to a far place, they got new ideas there. They have come back home to implement them. So for any meaningful development to be realized, we must have foreign investments. But now, when these guys come, they add into a corrupt network. They are swindled their money. They want to register their company. They are swindled the company. The money is swindled. The investments are taken away. And you find they shy away. They go back to their country. Now, when they go back to their country, then we are left now in a very weakened economic position. So just to sum up that is that you can see from the points that I've highlighted, corruption is a very bad thing, is a major impediment to any developing country.
Right. I wanted to add, but I think that you've given us so much, and it's quite unfortunate that we are there as a country. Now going to the next point, most of us, we are born in environment. We are born into the corruption system. How do we destabilize that? How do we fight against that?
Let me say that, one, it is not easy to fight corruption. Corruption fights back. However, it is not all lost. If we are determined and we are resolute, we can still fight it back. It will call upon us, first of all, to identify what are these forms of corruption. And then we get determined that we are going to face it head on. We make a very firm decision, like what Joshua in the Bible says, that for me and my house, I will serve the Lord. So it is upon us as young people to make that kind of a decision, that we are going to stand against corruption, whatever it takes. Even if the corruption fights us back, even if we are denied opportunities, even if whatever they do, we must be ready to fight and stand. And for us who are born again, for us who believe in God, we have an advantage that God leading the way will be able to overcome. So we can trust in God that He'll give us the strength, He will give us the energy that is required, He will give us the wisdom to fight this corruption. And it is possible to fight it. But as you fight, you should know that corruption fights back, but we will be able to overcome it. And there are many ways of fighting corruption.
Right. Explain more on the price that we'll have to pay by standing on our ground.
Thank you. There are many prices that you will have to pay for fighting and standing against corruption. One, from your peers. They will look at you as an outcast. They will look at you as a person who does not understand. The other day I was requesting for a service somewhere, and the guy who was to assist me, after talking to him like for 3-4 months, he tells me, Mzee, huelewi what should be done. You need to do something. You need to give us, to buy us boozy. So among my peers, I appear like a fool. I am not understanding how things should be run. And no one of us would want to appear a fool. So that is the first prize, that you are likely to be rejected by the peers that you are working with. Number 2, you are likely to miss out on opportunities. There are some opportunities that you find for you to get them. The corruption network has been laid in a very clear and a very firm way that you have to do this, you have to do this for you to get this one. So if your conviction is that I cannot do this, then you find that you are missing out on some of the opportunities. The third type of a price that you'll have to pay is you will have even to go through punishment. I'm remembering, I think in the year 2019, I had to spend 2 nights in one of our prisons, and reason being, I refused to give a bribe because they were asking me why. They wanted me to give a bribe that the building where I was doing business in had not been painted. Now, the building does not belong to me. It belongs to the landlord. But fortunately or unfortunately, when they came to the building, I was the first person they met as a tenant. So I was told to go write a report, and then they promised me I'll go back home. But only to get there, and they tell me things have changed. You have to take the price. Or else, if you don't want to go through this, give us this and this. I told them I cannot. As a born-again Christian, I will go through the entire process because the house is not mine, and I cannot give you the bribe. So I had to spend some time in the jail. And that is, it's not easy. It's torturing. when you know you are suffering for something that is not your mistake, but because of the conviction and the faith that you have, you stand. I've also had opportunities where I have lost my time. Maybe I'm along the road and some people stop me, and for some reasons they accuse me of some issues, and I'm required to give something, and I say no. As a born-again Christian, I don't think I was in the wrong, or if I was in the wrong, I think we should follow the due process. So in following the due process, you waste a lot of time. Or let me not use the word you waste. You take a lot of time. And even in the course of time, you may find that money is being spent. And fourthly, you can also suffer physical beating. You can suffer physical beating. People can beat you. People can even go to the extent of planning to kill you, to eliminate you, because maybe they perceive you as standing on their way. And even before I talk of being killed, people can get ways of removing you from your position. I have a friend of mine who is a director somewhere, and she refused to compromise on the issues of tendering. And the so-called cartels colluded, and they had her removed from that position and transferred to another department. So you can get transferred, you can be demoted from your position simply because you are studying. Coming back to the issue of physical beating and killing, you can be killed. You can be beaten by these so-called cartels. But for us, we don't fear because we know God protects us. And we have a very good case in the Bible, I think in the First Kings, where we see Ahab and his wife Jezebel and a man called Naboth and the prophet of God called Elijah. When Jezebel and Ahab wanted to take the vineyard and Elijah condemned it, we all know what happened to Elijah. Elijah had even to flee. Although God protected him and they were not able to get up with him, it was not a sweet experience. So there are those prices that you can pay when you start to fight corruption.
Okay. How do we build new systems that will there are already corruption system existing? How do we build new system that oppose corruption?
One is number one by reading as the example. Remember, the Bible calls us, or Jesus in one of the Gospels, I think Matthew, he says that we are the light of the world. And therefore, we must shed light to the world. So we must make our position very clear that this is wrong. We will not engage in this. And when we start now creating obstacles in the way of corruption, by and by we will weaken it. So it starts with us. The buck stops with us. We are to lead the way. Then from us, we also need to create awareness to our friends. We need to tell them, hey, my guys, this is corruption. This is wrong. This is against God's will. And there are many ways of creating awareness. We can do it via social media. We can do it through some paintings. We can even have some gatherings. I don't want to call them demonstrations, but we can have gatherings. We can also petition the government and those who are in authority. We can write papers and highlight to them that what you are doing or what you are pursuing or what you are intending to do is wrong. And we can also try to fight corruption by trailing the expenditure of government. When we hear that government is spending this amount on this particular issue, like now what the government is doing on the issue of desks, some of us could volunteer and check how much money was released by the ministry, how much money went down to the schools, and we try to bring out those issues. So we need to educate others even as we lead the way.
Right. And as we conclude, what's the place of a youth in this whole system?
The youth has a very, very important place, very central place. Because even in Kiswahili wanasema samaki mkuje agari mbichi. So that means we are able, or we are in a position that can be able to change the system going into the future. Maybe those who have already been in the system and deep-rooted, we may not be able to change them much. But for our generation and those who are behind us, we can be able to change them by studying, very clear as we have said, and educating others. And even Paul writes to us, or rather the Bible says in the book of John, that you as the youth, we as the youth, we are strong, and the word of God lives in us, and we have overcome the evil. So if we can take our ground, if we can take our position, we can be the agents of change. Actually, nowadays, we are the people who are techno-savvy. We are the people who are in social media. We are the people who are generating these programs. We are coming up with very complicated issues on social media. We can use all those platforms to change the thinking in our country about corruption.
Right. Any last words for maybe the youth on corruption, or just in general?
What I would want to tell the young people is that all of us desire to be wealthy. And the desire to be wealthy is one of the great motivators to corruption. But I want to tell you firmly, as the Bible says, that he who gathers wealth slowly is able to accumulate much. And what is easily obtained, it is also easily lost. So as you pursue wealth, appreciate processes. Tembea pole pole. Do what should be done. Don't compromise your way. Actually, we say that the wrongest way to your destination is a shortcut. The wrongest way. Shortcut is not always the shortest. Actually, in the long run, it ends up being the wrongest. So don't take shortcut. Don't give bribes. Don't compromise. Just follow the process. It may take a while, but in the long run, you will be able to get yourself sustainable success and wealth.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you in the Youth Split. That's it, guys, for today. Until next Friday. Bye.